Hello there, guys, and welcome to part two of our nutritional series. We're going to be learning about different food groups, what's inside them, and how it is that we can use different food groups to make our diet and life plenty easier so we can build muscle and lose fat. Now, in our last video, we covered calories, and the calories is just a form of fuel found within food that the human body uses. But where do calories come from? Well, all calories and all food are made up of three different main food groups, which is protein, carbohydrates, and fats. Each of these food groups contains their own set amount of calories per gram, but even though calories are a form of fuel, each of these different types of fuel goes towards fueling different purposes in the body. I.e., protein is mainly used for muscle repair and recovery and contains 4 calories per gram. Carbohydrates is fuel that we mainly utilize when we're doing high intensity exercise and also contains 4 calories per gram. Fats as a fuel source is mainly something that we use when we're doing low intensity exercise like walking or just being alive and existing, and it contains 9 calories per gram. The energy values that each of them has per gram will stay the same no matter what food source it is that we get those particular foods from. But let's break things down because there are certain amounts that you need, and each food group serves a different purpose within the body. So let's take protein first, right? As we said, protein contains 4 calories per gram, and protein is mainly found firstly within meats. Pretty much any meat that you get, whether it's like chicken, steak, or fish, all contains about 30 grams of protein per 100 gram once it's cooked. The next best source for protein is going to be things like dairy products, so like milk, cheese, and eggs. Protein powders will get included in that. And then latter protein sources are mainly going to come from legumes, which is things like beans, peas, and nuts. Now, the amount of protein that we need comes in a range, right? But protein is the food group that usually people are under eating, and it's the one that's by far the most useful. Because not only does protein help us with building muscle, but protein is also the most hunger satisfying of all these nutrients as well. I.e., if we eat 100 grams of protein or 100 grams of carbs, the 100 grams of protein is going to fill us up for way longer, even though it's got the same amount of energy as carbohydrates because it's a much slower digesting product. So you really want to have a high protein intake, both for muscle repair and also if you're trying to lose fat as well, to try and keep those hunger cravings at bay. It's about 1 gram per kilogram of body weight. So if you weigh 80 kilograms, it would be 80 grams of protein per day. However, the amount that we need to start building muscle is anything between about 1.5 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight. So for our 80 kilo person, this would be anything between about 120 to 160 grams. You can eat more than that as well. Like the body will still utilize every single little bit of protein that it can do. And any protein that it's not going to use towards building muscle, it will actually just use to start fueling your daily activities. It can convert protein to a form of carbohydrates inside the body. But let's not worry about that one too much just yet. Just know that if you eat a bit of excess protein, it's not bad for you whatsoever, and it's only going to still give you benefits. The next food group we're going to go into is carbohydrates. Now, as I said before, carbohydrates are mainly utilized as quick release fuel during exercise, but the vast majority of carbohydrates also contain plenty of vitamins and minerals inside them as well. And when we start looking at carbohydrates like that, we want to split them into two different groups because there's one that we call whole food carbohydrates, or some people call them complex carbohydrates, and then we have simple carbohydrates, or just really basically raw sugar carbohydrates. When we look at your whole food carbohydrates, these are the ones that will contain plenty of vitamins and minerals inside them as well. So all your fruits are going to be them. Then you'll have grains is going to be like the next main source. So things like your bread, wheat, pasta, rice, couscous. All your root vegetables are going to contain plenty of carbohydrates, so like potatoes, sweet potato, carrots, turnips, and then typically legumes and bean type products are going to contain a lot of carbohydrates too, so like beans and peas. Now, when we look at our diet, we want the majority of our carbohydrates to come from these kind of foods because, as I said, they all contain plenty of vitamins and minerals inside them, and they all have different kinds of benefits. So things like when you eat oranges, all right, oranges contain vitamin C, which is great for immune system support and prevent you from, getting sick. But then if we look at a food like sweet potato contains magnesium inside it, which is needed to just be able to relax in the first place. So if you're someone who's quite an anxious person, you could just be deficient in magnesium, which, you would get from sweet potatoes. There are plenty of other foods as well. I'm just giving an example. But when we look at your simple carbohydrates, right, so we look at things like just your plain sugars, basically, which is going to be things like your table sugar, it's going to be honey, it's going to be like maple syrup, and things like Haribo sweets at the shop. Now, as far as affecting weight loss or weight gain goes, these would have the same impact as far as energy is concerned. They both contain 4 calories per gram. But these simple sugars don't contain any vitamins or minerals inside them. And therefore, there's plenty of extra benefits that we can get from these food groups, the more complex carbohydrates, rather than these ones over here. Because if you have a diet that's majoritively simple carbohydrates, so you're not getting the vitamins and minerals, in order to be able to break these foods down properly and to break down other foods that you're eating throughout the day, your body's going to have to turn to its internal stores of vitamins and minerals to help with that process. So you slowly get more vitamin and mineral deficiency over time, and that's when you can start running into autoimmune conditions and getting sick more easily. It doesn't mean that we can't have simple sugars. They are perfectly fine for us to have, especially as far as fat loss is concerned. As I said, it's more about the energy in versus energy out. We just want the majority of the diet to be from the whole food carbohydrates so we get those benefits of vitamins and minerals. And the other reason why we want to do that is actually for hunger cravings as well. If the body is deficient in vitamins and minerals, sometimes you'll start getting cravings for food that won't be satisfied by just eating food in general. It's only really going to be satisfied by replenishing the lost vitamins and minerals that you have. And the other thing is that when you eat a diet that's majoritively simple carbohydrates, simple carbohydrate foods tend to be what we call hyperpalatable, which means that they are basically delicious and tasty and you want to eat more of them. So you eat the simple foods, you tend to want to eat more of them, but as you're eating more of them, we're getting further and further away from having these vitamins and minerals. So it's kind of like a self-perpetuating circle. Now let's get into fats. When we get into fats, it's a kind of similar story, right? We have healthy fats and we have bad fats as well. Now, all healthy fats are is fats that are going to be contributing towards the healthier body, because not only do fats give us this slow release energy, but they also give us hormonal support as well. Things like your testosterone itself is synthesized from fats. Fats convert to cholesterol in the body, and that cholesterol helps to synthesize towards testosterone. Pretty much all of our hormones are supported by fats themselves, and also other things in the body as well, like your hair is going to be healthier, and it's always going to be lovely if you have plenty of good fats in your diet. When we start looking at fat sources, we mainly want to stick to what we would call, again, like a whole food fat source. So things like all your meats, like any kind of red meat, the kind of fats found within them is absolutely fantastic for you, contrary to what the media tends to say. Main fat source is going to be things like eggs. Any kind of fatty fish is going to be fantastic for it. You get plenty of fats within dairy products as well. So most whole yogurts, like ones that haven't had the fat specifically removed from them, and things like milk and cheese as well. And you'll get things like avocado as well, which is off a plant, but for some reason contains majoritively fat and does not really contain any carbohydrates at all. Now, when we look at bad fat sources, which are fat sources that raise the bad cholesterol inside your body, what we're looking for is fats here that have been cooked too far high of a temperature in the process of making the food. So things like biscuits and pasties, right? Biscuits and pastry goods are going to contain butter. And when butter is in its like raw cold form, it's fantastic for improving your cholesterol health. But when we cook that butter to a really high temperature and then we let it cool down again, it breaks down what the chemical structure is of that fat in the first place. And it starts, not doing the purposes that we wanted it to do in the body. It becomes a form of bad cholesterol. And all the differences between good cholesterol and bad cholesterol is good cholesterol is the kind of fat that helps you clean out your arteries over time, helps to improve heart health, and bad cholesterol is a kind of fat that deposits in your arteries over time, increasing blood pressure and increasing the risk of things like heart attacks and strokes. Now, before we touched on the fact that protein has a certain amount that you need in your body to be able to get the best results out of it. But what about for carbohydrates and fats? Well, these particular food groups, we don't usually worry about tracking these kind of numbers just because it's quite easy to get in a lot of carbohydrates and fats passively through your diet if you just prioritize protein in the first place. Whereas, whereas when people don't prioritize protein, that's usually the food group that they struggle with getting in. But just for science sake, a good target for your healthy fats is about 1 gram per kilogram of body weight. So our 80 kilos person will be looking at about 80 grams of fat per day. And then the rest of their calorie allowance would get made up from carbs. So let's say this person needs 2,000 calories per day to lose fat. Like the amount of calories that they need to maintain their body weight is 2,500. So we put them on a 2,000 calorie deficit so they can start losing 1 pound of fat per week. First, we look at their protein amount. So if they're getting in 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, that's 160 grams of protein, which is 640 calories because it's 160 times 4. If they were having 1 gram of fat per kilogram of body weight, that would be 80 grams of fat, which is 720 calories. So what we then do is we get 2,000 and we'd minus 720 and then we'd minus 640. If my math is right, is 2,000 minus 1,360, which gives us 640 calories remaining. We would divide that by 4 because carbohydrates have 4 calories per gram, which would give us 160 grams of carbohydrates to enjoy in his diet. Now, that's just a little example of things if we wanted to try and be optimal as far as a balanced diet is concerned. But as we said, it's not really a priority. It's not going to really make any difference to your results at all. If you don't count the amount of carbohydrates and fats, you just count the amount of protein and monitor the total calorie. Now, you might have heard about some diets out there that don't have any carbohydrates in them at all, like the carnivore or the keto diet, and some people rave about them for fat loss. So are there any benefits at all to trying out different types of fuel-based diets? As far as fat loss is concerned, no. As far as just how you feel on a day-to-day basis, there might be some benefits of trying out other things, i.e. when we look at keto diets and carnivore diets, they tend to get along really, really well with people who have high inflammatory conditions, especially if you have skin conditions like eczema. People tend to get along great with these diets. It tends to reduce their symptoms over time. But it won't make you lose fat at any kind of quicker rate or nothing like that. So providing that you don't have any special dietary needs, I would personally still be pro that big flexible approach of aim for your particular protein amount, aim for the total calories, but don't really care about how many carbohydrates and fats you get in there. Just go for whatever food groups it is that you fancy on the day. So if you want some good homework, then what you want to do is go to a website like tdeecalculator.net, find out how many calories it is that you need to maintain your body weight, minus that by 500, find how much protein it is that you need for your body weight, and then go out there and start looking at the back of food packets, start finding out what foods contain the majority of protein in them, and start basing your diet around those food groups. I.e., if someone needs 160 grams of protein per day, like our little example guy did before, he could have something like 5 eggs first thing in the morning, which is going to be about 35 to 40 grams of protein. You could have 200 grams of meat with some salad, which is going to do his midday meal. That'll give him another 50 grams of protein right there. So already our little guy here is about 90 grams. And then in the evening, just because he feels like eating a bit more, he could have 300 grams of meat with his main meal. That's going to give him about 75 grams of protein. And already he's on about 165 grams right now across 3 meals in the day. I don't really want to make the topic any more complicated than this one, because the main point that we're trying to drive home is just make sure that you have a diet that's got plenty of protein inside it, that it's got mainly whole food carbohydrates inside it, that it's got some fats in it as well, and you don't get scared of those guys because you need those things for your health. And get out there and start knowing your food groups, man. That's going to be it for this video, guys. In the next one, I'm going to be giving you all little example template diet plans just to give you a little guide and path to help you get on the right track. Until then, peace out, guys.